thanks again for joining us, and we'll go ahead and get into the content. So we have how to build a successful acquisitions process. That is, what is your criteria for multifamily deals? What is your method of building deal flow? Use people, team members to scale. Are you leveraging technology to save time? Mindset is everything and so much more. There's a lot to cover here. We're going to leave some time for questions. So we're going to go about 30 minutes and then leave some time for questions. So we'll go ahead and jump in. I'm going to change the format up a little bit. So let's do stop share. You don't need to see that screen right now. So I want to talk to you a little bit. I did go over this in my keynote on Saturday. So if you're at the summit and you saw the keynote, I am going to cover a lot of that same content, but not all of it will be the same. So you'll definitely maybe get something new out of it if you've heard this before, but I felt it was good. And the way I wanted to go through it is a little more systematic. So what are you trying to buy? That's kind of what is your criteria for multifamily deals? So what is the vintage, the unit count, what markets, what class of property, what returns are you trying to realize? And to start this off, I'm kind of on the Art of War kick. I just started reading the book. It's a very simple read, but some great ideas there by Sun Tzu is how you pronounce that. But it's a great book. If you haven't read it, pick it up. I bought the nice antique classic looking version, but very cool. But it says a quote from Sun Tzu was, victorious warriors win first, then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win. The idea basically being have a process in place, have a strategy in place before you get started. And that's what we want to talk about today, is getting that started. So again, you want to set your objective, okay? Know your objective. And that is, what are you trying to buy is the number one thing. Obviously, are you trying to buy storage? Are you trying to buy, mobile home neighborhoods? Are you trying to buy multifamily? If it's multifamily, what kind of multifamily, like what vintage, what year it was built? That's very important to pick that. It doesn't have to be set in stone. And remember, version 1 is better than version none. So you can come out with something. I always tell my kids, just go ahead and make a decision, and you'll find out after you've made the decision whether it was a good decision or a bad decision. So many people spend so much time analyzing, trying to determine if something is a good decision. You will find out as soon as you make the decision. And then next time you can make a different decision if it turned out poorly, or the same decision if it turned out well. So don't be afraid to get started, but go ahead and pick your vintage. So we typically look at properties that, we really kind of cut it off at really 2000, 98. We have some other properties in our portfolio right now, but we don't really look for anything older than that. And because you run into a few problems with the infrastructure, with, different types of pipes and electrical, you get into aluminum wiring, and you get into different types. We get the polybutylene plumbing pipes that have issues, or actually the fittings that have issues. So in the older property, so we just stay away from those. And then we go all the way up to current year. So we buy new properties 2021, and backwards to 2000. That's kind of our range. But for many people, it's different. And so our threshold, again, is going to be from around 2000 to 2021 is going to be our range. We I think our sweet spot that we really like to see is like 2010 to 2018, somewhere in there, because there's a light value add play, hopefully, in that, but not real heavy. But the newer products, the lease ups, have some upside in that they just are getting them stabilized, and then we have room to push to market rent. So we can implement a value add plan without spending capital. And right now, the cap rates are actually better on new deals than they are on value add deals. I know it sounds weird, but a lot of value add deals, even in Greenville, are sub 4, if you can believe that. Now that's in place, and then they're looking at year 1 stabilized after the value add plan. You're definitely getting back around closer to 5, like 4.75, specifically like for Greenville, for instance. But it's very, very compressed. So we don't feel it's very advantageous for us to buy value add properties at this time. That's different for everybody. So I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying that's what we do. And so that's why we choose the vintage that we do. But we are still hoping we can pencil out a value add deal because we like those. But it's right now, it seems to make more sense to go after new deals. And then so vintage, pick that vintage, it could be 70s, could be 80s. Less people, there's less competition in the 70s and 80s vintage. So it's a little bit easier to get them. There is definitely more competition in the brand new 2021 deals, especially this Ascend Waterley deal that's 92 million. You have institutional money chasing after that. And so we have to get really aggressive. We actually, not to get off track here, but we got that one by putting in a preemptive offer and keeping that offer held all the way through the full process. They didn't take the preempt, but our offer held all the way until last round. Then we upped it just a little bit. We're able to beat out some groups because some of the REITs can't do hard money. So we were able to get it that way. But anyways, so the vintage, then the unit count, what size are you looking for? If you're just starting out, maybe you're only looking for, 10, 15, 20, maybe you're looking for 100. Whatever the case may be, you got to set that criteria ahead of time so that you can narrow down what you're trying to look for, because you are going to be overwhelmed if you're looking at everything. We are looking in, South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, Texas, and within those markets, we're looking, we're looking at San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, and in those submarkets, there are micro submarkets that we're looking inside of, and then Florida, you have Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville. We're looking in Charlotte, Raleigh, Greenville, Charleston, Atlanta, those types of markets. And if you're looking at everything and you're not sorting out what you're trying to find, then you're going to be spending a lot of time looking at stuff that's not going to fit your criteria. So pick that vintage unit count, what markets you want to be in. I touched on that a little bit. So specify what cities, what state, which city, and what submarket of that city. As you all know, you can't just say, we're going to invest in Charlotte. It's maybe an area of Charlotte, or the same thing with Raleigh. There's good parts and bad parts to all of those markets. So be sure to pick one that, that you've done the research on, that you can see positive population growth, that you can see all those things, rent increases. You're looking, some of the Texas markets are looking at a 5 to 6% rent increase over the next couple of years. So you're going to want to pick that market. The Southeast is definitely strong, especially with the kind of mass exodus from the northern states and California. People are moving in. There's no housing inventory right now because everybody's buying houses at a high price. You take that along with the fact that lumber prices are high, the fact that that's going to impact single family homes. So your inventory is going to go even lower on single family homes. That's also going to affect your pipeline of new multifamily deals. So current multifamily deals are going to see a big rent increase. I think in the next 5 years, it's going to be the heyday, if you will, of multifamily. What markets again? So, Raleigh, we're seeing, we've got one just outside of downtown Raleigh. We have one, Chapel Hill area, Durham, kind of Raleigh-ish, okay, if you will, because it's a great market. We have a couple assets there already. We have our Braxton Cary Weston, and our Carrington Briar Creek property there. And then, of course, again, we're in Charlotte. We have properties in Greenville. We have properties in Orlando. We're looking in a bunch of other places. So pick that market and get down into it. You're going to need to do that because you're going to need to know when we get to the next step, who you need to be talking to. And then, so what vintage, what unit count, what markets, and what class of property. So, usually your newer properties, obviously that's going to be considered Class A, but there is some kind of more cheaper product that's built new, and it's not necessarily Class A. They're going to call it Class A because it's new, but it's not really. Like, the finishes aren't as nice, the clubhouses aren't as nice. So, you can have B class new stuff, and you can have A class older stuff. Those are things you need to consider. You're going to get C class workforce housing, B class, A class. We like the B and A space. We had some in C. It saw a little bit of pain through COVID with the your bad debt numbers. So there is something to be said about the higher income levels. We are seeing, most of our newer properties that we're getting, the income levels are around 80 to 90,000. So we run much less risk of non-payment of rent. So we like that, but I realize that not everybody's going to be able to do that. So, but whatever your case may be, you're going to need to pick, what type of asset class you're going to do. And I'm not disqualifying any other sort of asset class. Don't get me wrong. We just choose that space. There's money to be made in all the areas, except for maybe D. But if you want to do that, go ahead. And what returns are you trying to realize in each purchase? That's going to be very important. What's your IRR number? What's your cash on cash number? So we're trying to, most of our deals, we're trying to get at a 7 cash on cash, and we want a range of IRR between 13 and 16, depending on where you exit. Obviously, if it's compressed cap or expanded cap, that's going to make a difference. So expanded cap, the lowest we'd like to see is a 13, but we've gone lower than that. We have, if the deal makes sense. But you're going to need to know that going in, so you can start qualifying and disqualifying deals. And also the broker's going to want to know that. They're going to bring deals to you that meet your return metrics. So you just tell them, this is our cash on cash, this is our IRR. Roughly, this is what we're targeting. And they're going to send you stuff. Now, keep in mind, when they hit those target numbers, they don't have all the fees built in that us syndicators do. So that acquisition fee, the asset management fee, the loan guarantor fee, those aren't calculated in. So they'll give you something, say, oh, this hits the returns that you said, and you underwrite it. And it's like, no way, we're a couple million off. That's why, because yours is including fees and theirs isn't. So you're usually quite a bit off. So that's under, what are you trying to buy? So I'm going to go through them again, just in case anybody's taking notes. Sorry to be redundant, but what are you trying to buy? So what vintage, what unit count, what markets, what class of property, and what returns are you trying to realize in each purchase? And then who are you trying to buy them from is very, very important. That's the next heading. What brokers are in your target market? So remember, you picked your markets, and now you're going to, Google, do whatever you need to do, and look for the brokers in those target markets. You're pretty much in our space. We're dealing with, we got CBRE, NKF, Cushman Wakefield, Capstone. We don't really get anything from Marcus Millichap. We get JLL, Northmark. Those are the big players there that we pretty much deal with on a regular basis. And that's very easy to find those brokers and find those deals, but they have different brokers for different deal sizes. So if you're mainly C class and maybe a smaller unit count, you're going to be dealing with a specific broker. Whereas if you have, you're doing A class lease up, you're going to be dealing with another broker, most likely with some of these bigger firms. But if you're going for smaller stuff, you're going to have to get a little bit deeper and try to find your local brokers. They may be more like a real estate agent, if you will. And there's some small shops that you're going to want to look for as well if you're looking in the smaller space. But where we play, that's kind of where we're at. So who are you trying to buy it from? What brokers are in your target markets? Do you have a relationship with them? It's very, very important that you get FaceTime with them, talk to them, get to know them, know what they like to do, go golfing, do whatever. It's very, very important. It will win you deals. I promise you that. And you can have conversations about what's coming up, and, it's just going to be better if they like you. So be sure to make yourself available to the brokers. And do you stay in front of them? So constant contact with them. You'd be amazed. Every time I reach out to a broker and just have a conversation, not about any specific deal, but just, about, deal flow in general, then I get a few deals in here and there. So you start to see deals coming in just from that contact there that you made. And they're like, oh yeah, they may have forgotten about you, or just, you just came to mind when you called. And so well, check out this deal. I got this right now. And so it's very important to stay in front of them, have a system for doing that. And do they take you seriously? And that's kind of something that's going to take some time. You're going to have to build that reputation, especially, that first deal is huge. It builds reputation. You burn all your fuel on takeoff. And then once you get up to cruising altitude, you're pretty good. So it's important that they take you seriously. They're going to want to know where your equity is coming from. They're going to want to know who the key principals are. Those things are very important. Have you closed deals before? If you haven't closed deals before and you're trying to get going, I think it's very valuable to be invested in some deals on the LP side. So you at least have some experience there. At least you can say, well, I've been doing this and this is where my equity source is coming from, or try to raise money maybe for someone else's deal to kind of build up your investor database before taking the risk of getting a deal under contract, not being able to raise for it, and ruining that reputation, because I promise you that's going to hurt, especially if it's your first one. So make sure the brokers take you seriously. There's a lot of tire kickers out there, so you do not want to be considered one of them. Just get stuff done, do what you say you're going to do, and they will start to pay attention when you are around. And then the next heading is, how are you going to find what you are looking for? So that's pipeline, right? So you want to be on all the email lists of all the broker databases around, like I mentioned, those brokerage firms, the JLL, NKF, Cushman Wakefield, Northmark, CBRE, Capstone. I think I covered all of them. That's, all on all their lists, and then on all their lists in each market. So it's not just one list, really. I'm getting on the list for Tampa, Orlando, for Jacksonville, for, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, for Charlotte, for Raleigh. Each of those have, a different person that runs those, and you want to make sure you're on their mailing list. And when you get a deal in, make sure you're responding right away to the email blast, to the broker specifically. I just reply and go to the broker and say, what's the guidance, kind of what's the time frame on that. That's basically my first step. Now we have an acquisitions department now. We have our acquisitions lead. That is Eric Fitzgerald, and then Chris Neary is our acquisitions associate. Give me 1 second. Danny Randazzo is calling me. So I gotta mute that. We're closing on a property tomorrow, so getting all those things tightened up. But and Chris, like I said, Chris Neary does our kind of our analysis. And so they have those steps built out that they go ahead and reach out to the broker and check on things. And I'm constantly just pushing things to them that are still coming to my inbox, but we created a specific inbox for deals, and multifamily address that we know is only for leads. And we, send things to that. So we keep it all separated out and we keep it empty. So if it's a deal that we haven't loaded into our system, it stays in there. If it's loaded into our system already, then we delete the email just to keep it nice and clean, make sure we aren't missing anything. So that's our pipeline. That's deals, right? That's all the deals coming through you as the pipeline. But then you have the system, kind of the platform, if you will, to sort through those. And I can't show you our platform. I wish I could, but there's some sensitive information in there with properties, and those are under confidentiality agreement, so I can't really say who they are. But we use Monday now. We started out with using Airtable, then switched to Monday. Monday, I think, is a little bit more intuitive. I like it better. It has some better integration features. We use automated emails, so we can send, if we as soon as a deal hits, it can automatically put a due date when it's due. It can automatically send an email to me when a new deal is entered. It can automatically send reminders if it hasn't been looked at in so many days. And you can leave notes about the file. It's very, very nice. And it also has a CRM feature, so we can link brokers to deals. So whenever we go to talk to a broker, we can click on their name and we can see whatever deals we worked with them on. And that's, I think, is a great feature, because you do get deal merge after a while if you look at the number of deals. But we have about, I would say, 40 to 50 deals that we're looking at in our system that's come from our pipeline. And then we just closed on one a few weeks ago, Monte Rosso in Orlando. We're closing on one tomorrow. And then we're getting ready to close on the Ascend Waterley deal in Orlando in July. And then trying to get my August acquisition. We're trying to do one every 30 days. So that's basically how we work. But get a system. It doesn't really matter what system. If you like Airtable, if you like whatever it is, Monday is, I really, really like. And what we did actually was we got together Eric, Chris, and myself, and we sat down and we went through every single criteria that needed to be checked, every single benchmark that needed to be met on the underwriting. So have we checked taxes? Have we checked insurance? Have you checked debt? Have you verified other income? What's the rent analysis? Have we done a rent analysis? Has the management company done a rent analysis? What's the pro forma? Have we done a pro forma? Have they done a pro forma? Has the various parties involved looked at the underwriting to make sure it makes sense, especially our asset manager, Brian? We wanted to go by him because he's going to have to make the business plan work. So get feedback from him. So we wrote all those things down and then assigned who was responsible for what, all the way from who's going to load the deal into the system, who's going to reach out to the broker, who's going to do first pass underwriting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And basically, I'm a firm believer in, not micromanaging. That took me a long time in my life to learn that micromanagement doesn't work, that giving people ownership of something is the best way to get quality. If you micromanage something too much, then they detach because they just like, well, he's just going to take care of it, so why bother? So what I did was give the whole process to Chris and Eric. We went down through the criteria. We sorted down through whoever, and I said, you build the system in Monday. You do the integrations. You do whatever you think is best. Whether, if you like this kind of bucket or this kind of, color scheme for the different statuses or whatever, you build it, present it to me, and then we'll have a discussion. And so that gives them ownership. It makes them, want to present something nice. It's also, they're going to be working the system, not me. So it makes it more intuitive for them. If I try to design something and give it to them, it's a little bit, then they have to learn it the way I am thinking. But if they're the ones using it and they're the ones that designed it, I think it just makes for a seamless takeover. And then we reviewed it. I made some changes, and it's a constant change, right? We're always updating. What do you think would be better? Do we need to change this? Where's the bottleneck? Where's the rub? And constantly making that better. I'm going to have to burn through the rest of this to try to get through. So how are you going to verify your business plan is the next thing. So under the last header was, how are you going to find what you're looking for? And that's pipeline, system, and team. So kind of talked about all that together. How are you going to verify your business plan? And that's rent comps, sales comps, cap rates, pro forma, and collaboration. So that's under how are you going to verify your business plan? Rent comps, we're getting that ourselves off CoStar. We're also sending it to our property manager for them to do rent comps. We want it separate. We want to compare them, see if we're all seeing the same thing and verifying. Sales comps. Sales comps are kind of tough right now because stuff is selling much, much higher than it was. And a lot of it hasn't hit the books yet. So I wouldn't say just to disqualify something immediately if you see it selling for so much per door and you don't see any sales comps for that price per door. Ask the brokers, they'll get you some stuff that's selling right now that hasn't maybe hit CoStar yet. So just be careful of sales comps. Cap rates, those are definitely have compressed quite a bit. It's insane right now. From what we were looking at, 3 years ago to now, is 2 points, I would say, on average, 6 to 4. I think most of our stuff is in the 4.25 range. If I see a 4.5 or 4.75 deal, it's going to make a lot of sense. And we're seeing stuff really run on. So they give guidance at, let's say they gave guidance at 260, and we see those deals go all the way up over 300 a door, 260,000 per door, and it goes up over 300 a door. That's insanity. But that's what's happening right now. So you have to keep. That's a constant shift. You got to keep up with that. Pro forma, that's going to be your income and expenses. You're going to want to create one yourself. Also have your property manager create a pro forma and compare them. Again, make sure you're aligned. You don't want to put them in a situation where they're going to fail. And then collaboration, I talked about that going, talking to each other, talk about, we send it to the asset manager. We send it to the property manager. And make sure everybody's on board with the business plan and make sure we didn't miss anything, right? Trust but verify, just double check yourself. And then how are you going to buy it? That's the next one. Either key principal or you're going to guarantee the loan yourself. You got to have that in place. Financing, you're going to do agency, LifeCo, bridge. You're going to do a floating rate, fixed rate, IO, whatever the case may be. You're going to need to figure that out because it's going to make a huge impact on your underwriting. Deals may work as bridge, but they don't work as agency, or vice versa, because of the LTVs, loan to values, or whatever the case may be. So you have to have that in place. Who's going to be the key principal? What kind of debt you're going to put on this specific deal? And a lot of the brokers have a debt side or capital market side. So, they can give you a lot of times a debt matrix that they've already done on the property based on the broker's underwriting, and they can tell you where rates are going to come in at. But it's all DSCR constrained. So they may say 80% LTV. That you can get that if you're getting the debt service reserve. So you want to make sure that you're hitting that number. It uses, I think, 1.24. I think is the number that you're having to hit. So once you go under that, that's where your LTV or LTC gets hit. And then equity, where's your equity coming from? And I touched on that before. Maybe try to raise for someone else's deal and try to test the waters first before you get something under contract to avoid ruining the reputation. And then you have, how are you going to repeat this process? So repeating the process is that's really comes down to reputation. Did you execute the first time? And then you can continue to do so. If you fumbled the ball the first time, it's going to be hard for you to continue the process. So be sure that your reputation is paramount. Be professional, courteous, be candid, communicate early and often. That's all purposeful things that we do in our business to make sure that we are, well known in the industry. And we take that, we take that very seriously. They are sometimes when things get heated, you have to remember not to be personal, not to take it personally, to be cold and kind of detached from it and not want anything out of the deal. It's very hard to do sometimes, but you do need to do that. It avoids saying something you'll regret. So reputation, execution, communicate early and often. If there's something wrong with the deal once you inspected it, or there's something happened with interest rate or whatever the case may be, if there's a problem, communicate immediately. Pain is inevitable, but agony is avoidable. Kind of like, go ahead and get it out there. And it may not be it's going to be the uncomfortable conversation, but be a grown up and have the hard conversation. I cannot stand when people are scared to have hard conversations. Just say it. It's so much easier that way. Growth, you want to be able to expand. You want to be able to scale. That's how you're going to be able to repeat the process. You're going to want to hire positions before you really need them, and then grow to fit the position. I find that to be a very applicable process. And adaptability, be able to shift. We started out doing, heavy value add. We are, most of our stuff is new stuff now. We were buying 80s and 70s even deals, and now we're doing 2021 stuff. And so that's just based on the market and what's happened with COVID and everything else. We've kind of shifted along those lines. So, and we may go back to value add later on. It just depends. You have to be able to adapt. Don't be so hard-nosed in what you're doing, and be adaptable in your process. Be willing to change, be flexible. Don't be the Blockbuster or the Kodak of the multifamily industry, and just not change and go out of business. And then learn from your mistakes. That's a huge one. I learn from every single deal, and every single deal gives me another aspect that I'm going to look at. I gave this illustration on my keynote is like cable contracts, for instance. We were just asking the broker on previous deals if they had a bulk cable agreement. Nope, they don't have a bulk cable agreement. Great. So we put in our underwriting, we're providing an internet, and a bulk cable hurts that, and you'd have to pay a termination fee. And so we got a deal under contract, and come to find out there actually was a bulk agreement. And so you can go to the broker and say, oh, you told me the wrong thing, and make him upset. But really the responsibility was mine to get the contract even before we get it under contract. So that's the thing. Like, we're asking for these cable contracts now before we even send in the LOI. We're tightening it up because we want to make sure that we have all the documents that we need. So now I'll make another mistake on the next deal, and I'll change something because of it. So, you don't know what you don't know until you mess it up. So be aware of your counterparts, know where your weaknesses are, know who you're dealing with, the brokers, the sellers, know the nature of the situation. It's it's the unemotional, reserved, calm, detached warrior who wins, not the hot-headed seeking vengeance and not the ambitious seeker of fortune. That's a Art of War quote. So make sure that you have all those things in place. And then now we want to go ahead and go to questions. I think there already is some right here. Cash on cash total for the investors. So that's during the hold, you're going to get a higher cash on cash yield once we exit. We do 2 share classes. We do a 9% and a 7% pref. So the 9% is going to be like a class A. It's really just like a debt piece. They don't have any equity or ownership in the deal. It's just a return on their money. And that's a 9%. And so the average the deal has to put out an average of 7% in order to achieve that and our 7% pref. Now the pref, once you hit 7 and go above that, then we have splits or waterfalls that we get as the GP. So the overall cash on cash is going to be much, much higher than 7%. That's just the yield during the hold, if you will. Interested in the Orlando market, what are opportunities there? There's a ton of opportunities in Orlando. We have deals coming out there all day. We have 2 properties. Well, we're closing on the other one in July, but 2 there. It's really booming. I mean, it's pretty crazy, especially like the southwest portion of Orlando. That's the winter. It's not Winter Garden. It's winter something. Can't think of it off the top of my head, and then you have the Winter Garden kind of up in the middle, like in the north side, that's high income. And so there's a lot going on there. So we're very excited about Orlando. We're still trying to get one more. We like to have about 3 deals per submarket. So we have a little bit of scale. We have a feel for the submarket. Winter Haven. Thank you. Yeah. And so we love those deals there. Monte Rosso is a beautiful property. All right. And then let me look at some other questions. Let me start from the top here. All right. What's your threshold for vintage again? So again, we're kind of cutting off at the 2000. We'll look at some 98 stuff, but that's kind of where our threshold is 2000. And then Raleigh, we already touched on that one. The list of brokers, can you repeat it again? Again, that's going to be NKF, Newmark, Knight, Frank, JLL. That's some weird name. I can't even remember what JLL stands for. But it used to be HFF. They were purchased by JLL. And then there's Northmark, Capstone, Cushman and Wakefield, CBRE. Those are the major players. Capstone is a smaller firm, but we've done a lot of business with them, and they are in Florida, and they do have some counterparts in Denver as well. So they've been good friends of ours. So this is what all of the brokers have. We've gotten to know Cushman Wakefield, the NKF guys, all of them very, very well. And we transacted all the time. So we try to get together with them, if we go out to dinner, if I'm in town, stop and see them, or we go golfing or whatever the case may be. We're very into keeping those relationships up. They're great people all around. Is our investor CRM different than our property CRM? It is different. We use Constant Contact for, I think it's Constant Contact. That's not my department, but that's what we use for our investor CRM. And then the one that's inside of Monday is definitely not as robust as something like that. You can't do the campaigns and stuff, but it just keeps everybody's, phone number, email, and what deal they're attached to. So it's very simple, but it works for what we need on the broker side. Do you put marketing content to get deal flow? Not to get deal flow. We don't put out marketing content to get deal flow, really. We do have a broker introduction one page for us when we go into new markets to kind of, email to the brokers or hand to the brokers, like, this is who we are, this is what we buy, this is what we're looking for in returns, kind of thing. This is our team, this is who you're going to be talking about, this is our portfolio, kind of a one pager. So we have that, but we don't really market to get deal flow. The brokers are going to come to you. They have something to sell. Looking only in North Carolina, should I consider the entire Carolinas? Concerned about the sheer volume of deals being relatively smaller as compared to other markets. That was one reason why we moved into Florida and Texas, is because the pipeline in the Carolinas was not sufficient enough for our scalability. So yeah, I think that would be a good idea to look at the entire Carolinas. South Carolina, really it depends on where you're looking. If you're looking tertiary, you're going to have some more stuff, but primary markets, it's really Greenville, Charleston, and Columbia. I live in Columbia. We don't buy in Columbia ourselves, but that is a primary market in South Carolina, but we don't have a by definition metro area in South Carolina. There are some good tertiaries like Florence and Darlington, different things like that you can also purchase in. So there's plenty out there. But North Carolina, it's got a few more good markets. Obviously, you got the Raleigh, you got Wilmington is a great market right now, Charlotte and whatnot. I'd really like to focus on Greenville market where I live, and I'm pretty open to the property type of the small market. There aren't that many buildings. Any advice for someone who wants to invest in a small market? Yeah, small market, when you're getting into the stuff like the size that we have, it gets very, very competitive, especially in those small markets. We are looking at some deals in Greenville right now we're investing final on, but they're larger deals. So if you're looking for a smaller deal in a smaller market, you can talk to the same brokers. They do have like a team usually that handles, a smaller door count. Property type, if you're looking at, so you're saying it doesn't matter if it's, C or B class, I'm assuming, not necessarily a different asset class like storage or multifamily. I would just tell the brokers what you're looking for. In a small market like that, especially if you know it really well, I know Greenville like the back of my hand. You can just drive it and just start contacting people. You can do that. If you're looking for just 40, 50 units here and there, that may be a good solution. And let's see. Hopefully I answered that well for you, Arn. Yeah, Jones, Lang, LaSalle. Thank you, Robert. That's the JLL. I always forget it because I never say it. It's just JLL. Yep, active campaign is what we use for that. How can I get involved with you and your team? I'm attorney in Jacksonville, be it recloading between Tampa and Orlando ASAP. Just reach out to us via email if you need to get in contact with us. We are, you can Brandon at passiveinvesting.com, Dan at passiveinvesting.com, Danny at passiveinvesting.com. So either of those emails will work. We do not invest in probates. Can you share your broker one pager? That's under construction right now. We just changed some things, so I don't have one to share with you, the one pager, but I will be happy to in a future webinar. Okay, looks like we got through that. Do you ever pursue off-market deals, or do you only work through brokers? Off-market is still through a broker. So there are very few principal to principal deals. There's one group, Sentinel, that will only sell principal to principal. They do not use brokers. They list it themselves. I think that's kind of silly to have your executives flying around the country showing deals. Poor use of money for a couple $100,000 commission on a broker, but that's the way they want to do it. So whatever. But off market is just going to be a deal from a broker that's not fully marketed, not fully advertised. There's no OM or anything like that. We look at those very often. That's how we get most of our deals, actually. Yeah, I have one more question about how do you obtain 9 to 7% pref when you buy an asset at a 4.5 to 5 cap. Cap has no impact on my cash. My cash has impact on my cash. So it's all relative to the deal. So if rents are increasing and we can increase rents or other income, a cap rate, I'd buy it lower than a 4.5 cap. I think my last deal was a 4.03 cap, and I was killing the cash. It was a strong deal. So cap rate does not affect my cash on that. So, all right, that's going to be all the questions that I'm going to have time for. I appreciate you getting in. We got one more. Who is handling the communication with brokers on various markets? That's my team. Eric and Chris handle all that. That was me initially, but I can't do that and still do what I do or be kind of over it. So that was a need to scale. And so they are in contact with them now. The brokers do reach out to me. However, when it's something very, very important or they have a hot deal, and I push them to our team after that. So Eric is kind of our head contact there. So, all right. Thank you all for joining us. Be sure to be here next week. We're going to be talking about preferred returns for apartment syndication. So that's going to go along with our 7 and 9% returns. If you want to talk more about that, I believe that's with Dan. What are preferred returns? How preferred returns are structured? Things to watch out for when investing in a deal with preferred returns, and so much more. So be sure to check that out next week. And I hope everybody has a great rest of the week. And I'm going to be flying in the sky in about 10 minutes. So thank you all for joining us. Have a good week.